Hello everybody. Today, welcome to Sidewinder Jiu-Jitsu's official YouTube channel. We're going to be covering some pretty basic positioning here and some basic concepts, some things that I want to cover with my students during this class. And one of the things that you'll notice is I do make a couple of off-camera references here, and the off-camera references are going to be to a couple competitors, to a couple students who had just left, who had just come back from a tournament. And in this tournament, both of them at white belt level managed to do the same thing. They managed to score a takedown. It's hard if you can imagine this. Just play it with me. They managed to score a takedown, get on top, establish dominant position, and in doing so, put themselves far ahead in both of their individual matches. Their matches went fantastic up until, I'd say, probably the last 30-45 seconds. It was almost uncanny because the two matches nearly mirrored each other. When you have circumstances like this as a coach, you tend to look back and reflect and go, well, that's a coaching deficit. So understanding that that's a very real potential circumstance, I chose to attack it. So what we're talking about today is we're talking about half guard. Half guard, as many of you know, is an extremely dynamic situation. It's a dynamic position that the one applying half guard can make use of multiple dynamic moves. They can move in multiple directions, and they can really play hell to off-basing an opponent's to basically unsettling an opponent's base. And so the two mistakes that both of my fighters made is at one point in time they became frustrated with the opponent's application of the half guard, and they set seemingly almost essentially straight up in the half guard, and got rid of their posts and began trying to pummel, began trying to push away, one of which almost stood damn near up, and in doing so completely gave up position and violated one of the three principles of the half guard that we're going to discuss here today. So getting into those principles for a person who applies the half guard, they're looking to do one of three things. Well, they're actually looking to establish one of three things that are very important to being able to use half guard for its primary goal, which is to sweep or to reverse. The first being the underhook. The underhook's supremely important because that keeps the applicant married to the defender and gives them the ability to use the lifting of the arm as an elevator. Okay, concept 2 or principle 2 coming in is going to be the dig, or what you'll hear me refer to as the dig, and that's going to mean in any manner whatsoever the person is using their offhand to try to scoot theirself completely up underneath the person and take away their contact with the ground. In doing so, they'll often go flat to their back, scoot completely up underneath the person, and oftentimes their offside arm will reach underneath the leg, and that then becomes a second point of contact, which leads into the third principle called elevation or elevate. So at this point, if they're not even using their hooks, we're not even talking about the legs. They have 2 points of elevation, being the underhook and then the other which will ultimately become an underhook, usually under the far side leg. And when they apply the dig principle, they then get underneath you, they elevate your entire body, and then the knees typically come up to become a third elevator. Now, a unique position within the half guard is what we call a half butterfly. I used to call it a V guard. There's many different names for it, but it's all the same thing. It's just essentially a half butterfly guard. So understanding that the half butterfly guard becomes an increasingly leveraging position, an increasingly strong position of leverage there. They can use that elevator as not a first, not a second, or even a third point of elevation, but a fourth. That's what makes half guard so dynamic. So right here in this position, in this first photograph, you're going to see the primary goal here, which is the defender's goal is to take a hard stance backwards. So they're going to maintain active posts at the front. You're going to see both hands out. you're going to notice that the leg that's being half guarded, that's going to fold up underneath them as best as possible. They're going to rock their weight completely back. Okay. Now in doing so, they've gotten rid of the sweep threat. Now the only other problem to solve is they have to figure out how to get their hands back inside and how to work their way out of the rest of the guard. Now at that point, what they're going to do is they're going to essentially keep elbows downward tight. They're going to bring their arms out parallel and start working themselves back down the chest. And we'll get to that point here later in the video. But you're going to see two video clips here, and you're going to see me explaining sort of my approach to what I'd call, I guess, worming out or backing out of the half guard. So what we're doing here is in this first picture, you see all the weight back. Now I've gotten rid of the sweep threat going forward. I have active posts. I can't be taken left. I can't be taken right. And then the kick out of the post leg, or what I'd call the posture leg, very important, because that prevents them from sitting up and taking you back over where your weight is distributed at. Now in doing that, you're solid in all four directions. Okay, so that's the principle we're trying to work. Now we never relieve chest pressure. We're not trying to be overly powerful down pressuring down, but we don't relieve chest pressure. So looking at this second picture, you're going to see kind of the disconnected look here of exactly what we're trying to accomplish. So we're sitting on that right leg, get the posture out, we've got both hands out in front of us. All right, now with both hands out in front, we've got a good solid base, good solid foundation with which to create a force-on-force application of technique. As many of you know, Jiu-Jitsu is not designed to be a force-on-force application of technique. It's designed to be a technique of, it's designed to be a system of uses of leverage. Now, when we create a force-on-force technique, what you're doing is you're putting the one that's applying that, the person applying that, or the attacker in this case, you're putting that person behind the eight ball, because he's now having to use force and to overcome your application of force, and that's not what the art's about. So that's going to drive down his combat effectiveness. All right, so that's essentially what we're trying to establish today. Very basic, not a specific technique at all. It's more so a concept of how to approach the half guard.
Neon belly, or you start hearing me trying to coach you to advance a position, the most important thing that we cannot do is give ample amounts of space to the lower body. Okay, so when we make a transition from top side and we're moving from one position to the other, we can't make that transition down here around the waist. We can't do that. Okay, so from side control, when we get ready to make that transition, the first thing that we have to do is these hands have to come in right here. And when I start to go to that neon belly position, I'm going to have to go to more of a kind of a neon chest up in this position, more so than bringing it down around here. Okay? Because this is where we're going to get caught, especially if we try to raise up and make space for the guy. But assuming that he puts us in half guard, so we get to this position, he jumps half guard, and we wind up right here. The basis for all topside advancement is going to be not allowing your hands to draw inward. So, maintaining a wide base is the order of the day. If you let your hands come in, okay, and then you elevate yourself, A, you're giving them space, B, you're narrowing out your footprint, and you're going to get swept. In both of y'all's instances, that's what happened. So we're on topside position right here. Pretty much how this came along in your fight was, we basically, she had the hook across the back, we came right across here, our hand was holding here, and we went like this, and we elevated up, and in doing so, we took away any active post that we had to prevent the sweep, and we wind up getting swept pretty much like so, okay? So, when we do that, and we're in sight, and we're in half guard, one of the easiest ways to attack half guard is to widen our footprint way out. Okay? We want to widen our footprint out. Keep in mind that there's two concepts he's trying to establish here. Number one is always going to be the underhook. Always. Whether you have the cross face or not doesn't really matter. And number two is going to be he's digging underneath your entire base, and he's pulling you on top of him so that he can do what? Elevate. Underhook, dig, elevate. The three most important concepts of half guard. You eliminate one of those, in any order, it doesn't matter, it makes his game 90% harder. Underhook, okay, so we're going to look at attacking one piece at a time. If we have an underhook right here, one of the easiest ways to defeat the underhook, if we're stuck right here, is not to draw the hand in closer. It's not going to be to do that, okay? It's going to be to pin his arm back to his side as best as we can possibly do it, so that we can start to walk ourselves farther down into the half guard. If we allow ourselves to get brought up over the top of the half guard, we're allowing him to get to be effective in his maneuver. Okay, so we have to start to work away. One of the most effective things that I do when it comes to half guard, no matter what the guy's doing, is I never do this, giving up my posture or giving up my post in my active post. I will keep myself low, but I'm going to use my posts and use my toes to start to push backwards into the legs and get out from under that dig and that elevation. Okay? This is just basic defense. Not so much basic, but it's just a defensive attack to kind of neutralize the game. So the dig starts, the underhook is here. He's digging, he's trying to get underneath me. The first thing I do is I pin my elbow and I start to work myself back. I'm completely, if I can separate myself from him right now, this is how I look. This is how I look right here. I'm pushing back, okay? Not allowing myself to get drawn up over my hand. Okay, I'm certainly not removing an active post. These, when you're in half guard, these have to stay here. Okay? Unless you're willing to use your head as your last post. And in the two circumstances we're talking about, neither one of us used our head as a post. We just kind of went over because we didn't have that option. So, half guard, when the dig is on and the underhook is there, first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put my hands on the mat. I'm going to keep my base wide. I'm going to widen myself out. I'm going to fold myself up as best I possibly can, and I'm going to sit the weight to my right rear leg, pushing back, working my way backwards out of the half guard. Okay? Once I work my way out backwards and out of the half guard, the knee becomes available. I can start to kind of work in here and start to get out and play my game and maneuver. But I can't do it up over here. I got to work back down here. Okay? The first thing we're going to work today, we're going to let them get real deep in the half guard, and I don't care how far they go, even up to right here. Cradle sweep, underhook, okay? I'm going to widen my post, drop my weight, work myself back, okay? Forcing back into the half guard. Alright? You gotta be careful even putting the hand on the cross face right here. Because if that hand goes across, there's a Shaolin sweep right there that's really nasty. Notice how that sweep happened. I gave away my what? My post. Guys, half guard is a dangerous position that a lot of people, really, especially at white belt, blue belt level, they don't feel too threatened in, right? Half guard is a very nasty position to a person that knows how to reverse, especially if they know the concept of digging and getting flat to their back to work for elevation. Once I get here, it's in trouble. If I keep him on his side and keep working myself back, I'm relatively safe. But once I allow that back to go flat to the mat, and I'm up like this, I'm in trouble. So I gotta keep working myself backwards. Imagine this being your threat, okay? The opening is here. We're trying to work ourselves back out of the threat we got stuck. Okay? Nothing fancy, nothing just crazy. It's just technique, posture, keeping reverse pressure in the half guard while he's trying to pull you over his legs. Okay? 1, 2, 3. So, second portion we're going to review. So we start off, we're working on good, safe posture and base in the half guard. Understanding the basic principles of a successful half guard. Basic principles are the what? Dig. Okay? Elevate and what? Underhook. Without those three elements, the half guard is nowhere near the threat. If you eliminate any one of them, it makes his game incredibly difficult. Okay? Dig, underhook, elevate. has to have those working in some sort of fashion for the half guard to be effective. Otherwise, he's just laying there. Okay, so he's under here. He's got the underhook. He's got the dig on. All right, easiest way to remain effective, whether he's got hook in like a half butterfly, doesn't matter. It's all the same. So now we've got dig, underhook, elevate all at once. I'm really in bad shape right here. And a lot of people don't understand the significance of this, and they'll kind of just hang out right here. With my weight over the top of Professor Mike, having a lot of danger right here. Elevation's on, digs on, underhook's on, I just go over easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to eliminate as much of this as I possibly can. I fold the right leg. And so one thing about half guard, it's even easier if in a half guard, if he has half butterfly, for me to fold the leg underneath whatever he's got going here. If it's half guard, it's a little more difficult. Okay? A little more difficult because he's going to manipulate my leg some. Okay? Getting underneath and folding all that way back hard can still be done. But with the half butterfly in, we're going to be able to do it a little bit easier. So we're going to fold the leg as far underneath as you can, because now we've killed some of the zip on it. Hands on the back. I'm going to drive backwards. Left arm is important that it doesn't flare. Left arm has got to go tight to the body, and I'm going to push myself back onto my right leg. Now the left leg extends. The only threat now is the dig. That's the only threat now. He's got the underhook, but the underhook is down here on the lower quarter of his arm. So the dig is on, or the underhook's on, he's going to be working for the dig, but not when I'm based out this wide. Now get this in mind. The threat for the sweep is so much more minimalized if my weight is back like this. It's so far back, it's hard for him to do anything. So the second half of this is pinch, tight, wide the base, I'm pushing back, going the opposite direction of which way he's trying to go. Okay, force on force. Not what jiu-jitsu's about. He needs to come up with a better technique. It's hard to do right here. So I can pinch tight, keep his chin from ducking under the arm. If it ducks under the arm, I'm screwed. Now he's got the dig on, and everything I just did is pointless. So now I've got to eliminate the dig. Weight's back, sprawled out wide, dig's eliminated. Now I can come in here tight, left elbow. I can start steering and working my way back. Okay, getting to this point right here. Once I get to this point here, I'm going to elevate just enough to get the leg on top. With the cross face, I'm going to switch my hips and sit to the lazy boy position. Now I switch my hips, kill the top leg, always passing the guard. We'll get into this in the guard's passing system. Always kill the top leg. So I go here, okay? You guys know my passing style. Am I going to settle for this? Not here. I want to be over there. Boom, boom. Okay? Quick change of position, all based off of killing this top leg. Okay? Or if you want to kill that top leg, just long step out, right yourself, you're good to go. Keep in mind, dig, underhook, elevate. Work away from the guard, getting to this position right here. This is where it's got to be. I should not see anybody from this point on do this out of half guard. Terrible no-no. Weight comes up, give him everything he wants. Okay? Yeah, it's just wherever he wants to take it. All right? We don't do that. Stay low. Start to defeat this thing one phase of the game at a time. Ideally, this position back for the good base is going to be most effective if you're trying to back out half guard. I say back out because that is an attack. It's a bunch of ways to go. I can vault over his head, I can do all this crazy stuff, but I'm going to induce a scramble. Going out of this way is a control, backing out of the half guard, and he's trying to pull me back in. And creating force-on-force options and force-on-force matchups is beneficial when you're the defender. Jiu-jitsu is not so much about force-on-force at all. But if you can create that when you're the defender, it makes their game a lot more difficult. Okay, keep it in mind. All right. 1, 2.